ABC-owned WRQX, better known as Q107. Both WPGC and Q107 have been competitive for young listeners, and both have placed in the top 5 stations in recent ratings. In making the change, Q107 says Doug Limerick will stay as news director, but Dude Walker will leave. Walker's contract expires March 17th. He reportedly today received a number of telephone calls from radio stations, including WPGC. Chris? Morning radio listeners may be surprised to learn that WPGC's Elliott and Woodside did their last show today. So did Q107's Dude Walker and Doug Limerick. Beginning Monday, Elliott and Woodside will broadcast on Q107, leaving WPGC after 3.5 years. Q107's program director, Alan Burns, explains today's move this way.
For the past 2 years since I've been in this market, I've been trying to get Jim Elliott and Scott Woodside out of Washington because they're very good, and competitively they're a limitation for us. It finally got to the point where I thought the best thing for the radio station was to have them work for us rather than work against us. So we made them an offer, I think a generous one, and they wisely accepted.
Couldn't refuse it, I think that's what he meant. Doug Limerick will stay on at Q107 as news director. Dude Walker's contract with ABC's Q107 runs through March 17th. Dude reportedly has gotten inquiries from a couple of radio stations today, including WPGC.
And we wish them all luck.
And Arch Campbell says if you start your days with either Dude and Doug or Elliott and Woodside, you may have to learn some new numbers on your radio dial. He'll also have the review of the movie Absence of Malice. We'll be right back.
Two hands. How many of you listen to Q107 in the morning? A few more hands. Anybody here listen to those stations? Starting Monday, the morning team on WPGC, Jim Elliott and Scott Woodside, are moving to Q107.
No.
Yes.
Oh.
You listen to Doug and Dude on Q107, they're not going to be there anymore. Doug Limerick is going to stay on as news director there. Dude Walker's out looking for another job. And Elliott and Woodside are moving over to another station. Nobody's saying how much loot they're getting, but that's what we're talking, money. In fact, WPGC said the whole thing was a business decision, and they said they'll be fine and Q107 will be fine. I think the wild card in the whole thing is Howard Stern, who's on a third station, DC 101, because he took a lot of the audience from both stations. And now Elliott and Woodside is one of the ways that Q107 wants to fight back. Now, on to the movies.
And there's some big shaking on the rock and roll morning radio scene. Arch Campbell will be here, and we'll be right back. Washington radio is rocking and rolling with the news that the morning team on WPGC is moving to Q107. Arch Campbell has more on that.
Hey, now, there is a lot of money riding on this
Oh, I can
move.
imagine.
Let me tell you. Now, first of all, if you listen to Elliott and Woodside on WPGC, you've got a surprise coming because on Monday, this Monday, they are taking their act to Q107. Why are they doing it? For money. That's why they're doing it. Now, if you listen to Doug and Dude on Q107, another surprise because they are off as of today. Doug Limerick's going to stay at Q107 as a newsman. Dude Walker, very good announcer, is looking for a job, in spite of the fact that these two guys had a very successful radio show. So one of the questions is, can you replace a successful radio show with something even more successful? Q107 thinks so. Here's what their new employees think. People listen to you guys on WPGC all the time now already.
Come on over to Q107. Here we are.
There's a lot of people that really like Dude and Doug. What do you say to people that were listening to them?
Try us. For people that like Dude and Doug, they'll like us. For people that liked us, they'll like us even more.
You think you guys are going to bury PGC now that you're leaving?
We don't look at it that way. We will win, and that is the main objective, winning. And que sera, sera.
See, now these guys really take it seriously, but I want to tell you, this is more than a story about some people changing jobs in radio, because this is a story about the radio business. Those guys are out there to make money. The bigger audience they get, the more money they can make selling ads. Now, right now on the radio, Hardin and Weaver on WMAL AM still have the biggest morning audience. Both Q107 and WPGC lost a bunch of audience to Howard Stern. Hardly anybody was listening to them a year ago. I talked to the media director at a big Washington ad agency. She told me that if Elliott and Woodside can bring their audience with them, Q107 could wind up with the biggest audience in town. Meanwhile, Elliott, Woodside, Doug, and Dude are all taking tomorrow off. And I don't blame them. Tough.
Why don't we?
Business.
Not a bad idea.
among Washington area radio stations for listeners produced an act of crosstown piracy of sorts today. Night Team's Jack Connerty reports.
This may look like a morning rush hour to you, but if you're in radio, it looks like an audience. In broadcasting jargon, it's known as morning drive time, and it's the equivalent of evening prime time in TV. The hours between 6 and 10 in the morning provide radio's largest potential audience. Morning drive time in Washington is dominated by this team, WMAL's Hardin and Weaver, and every week some 400,000 people will tune in on their show. But among Washington's 20-odd radio stations, there's a fierce competition for listeners. And in those seemingly perpetual tong wars, today came news of a major defection. WPGC's popular Elliott and Woodside jumped ship and crossed town to WRQX, better known as Q107. And everyone involved hopes they take their sizable audience with them.
For the past 2 years since I've been in this market, I've been trying to get Jim Elliott and Scott Woodside out of Washington because they're very good, and competitively they're a limitation for us. It finally got to the point where I thought the best thing for the radio station was to have them work for us rather than work against us. So we made them an offer, I think a generous one, and they wisely accepted.
The real target in radio is listeners between 25 and 49 years old. The listeners advertisers want to reach because they buy most of the consumer products in this country every year. And advertisers believe that if they can reach people between 25 and 34 years old, they can even build product loyalty. And that's where Elliott and Woodside come in.
It is that prime demographic where stations can command big dollars if you have that age listener. And we are of that age, and we, for good fortune or whatever, managed to attract a lot of people in that demographic, and that's one of the reasons I think that Q has hired us.
I feel that you have to give people, you have to reflect your audience. You have to go out to them, and it's by reading, by getting out on the street a lot, finding out what they're into, and be a reflection of what the people are, the mass audience.
Will Elliott and Woodside be the new Hardin and Weaver? Well, the American Broadcasting Company isn't taking any chances. ABC owns both WMAL and Q107, and now they own both of the popular morning drive time teams, too. Beginning next week, they'll compete from the same set of studios. In Northwest Washington, I'm Jack Connerty, News 7.
And the end of Hawkeye Pierce's most unmilitary career is being observed all over the country.
Oh, we're going to do a trivia question now.
Disc jockeys at WRQX Radio have been asking MASH trivia questions every hour.
What is the motto of the 407 7th as seen on a sign in the wall of the Officers Club?
And they say their listeners know all the answers.
One of our questions was wrong, for instance. And we did the question, and we had a wrong answer to the wrong question, and people called up and said, that was wrong, that was wrong, that was wrong. And I said, yeah, but we got these questions from 20th Century Fox. We don't care, it's wrong. I've watched every episode in the last 11 years. So we just went ahead and gave it to the listener.
And what is the motto on the wall of the MASH Officers Club?
Hi, best care anywhere?
Hey, first caller. First caller. First caller.
Are you serious?
First caller, you got it right.
The answer is best care anywhere. And after tomorrow night, you'll have to study for those trivia questions in reruns. I guess that settles what we'll be doing at my house tomorrow.